What's up, guys? Welcome to Drake on Digital, and thanks for tuning in. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the bull market coins that I have on my radar for the next bull run. I've been accumulating several of these, and I have already made several videos on these. So if you guys want to check out the previous videos for all the content in this video, you guys will be able to see that in the previous video. And if you guys are already in the Discord group, you've already heard me talk about these different plays. So let's go and get into this. The very first one we're going to talk about is Akash. Now, Akash is considered the decentralized cloud. Now, most of you think are like, what the snap? This thing is already pumped like nuts and ham. Until you go on to the max chart and then you're like, oh, what the snap? It's got a lot of room to run. Now, I'm not saying it's going to reach all-time highs again, but I am bullish on Akash. I have been accumulating around the 30 cent to 50 cent level. Here was one of the tweets I talked about. This was back on January 27th. I've had Akash for a really long time. I like Greg Asiri. I like what he is doing. I like the concepts. It fits several different narratives. It fits the AI narrative. It fits the gaming narrative because it's a decentralized cloud. So all these different games want to run on Akash. And yes, they already have several games that are running on it. One of them, for example, on Cosmos is Strange Clan. They're basically buddy-buddy with Strange Clan, and Strange Clan is a pretty cool game. You guys can check it out on Cosmos as well. But basically, the TLDR on what Akash is that it's a decentralized cloud, but, well, like AWS, but it's decentralized. So think what AWS does, which a bunch of people use, major companies, even crypto projects, that's where they host their websites, even, yes, these JPEGs that we buy on Ethereum. These are hosted and usually stored on AWS. Just imagine being stored on Akash. Now, you can read this full thread to get the concept with it, but TLDR is people can run the Akash network on these little mini nodes from their home, and this is how the cloud is stored, and they are paid in these Akash tokens to do so. You can check out the previous video to understand the full concept behind it, but that's the TLDR on what they're looking to do. Throughout the bear, Akash has been basically building, and it's starting to come to fruition, and a lot of people are starting to notice what they built. They also follow the AI narrative because as more and more as society becomes automated and AI starts taking over the world, it's going to need more storage and it's going to need more bandwidth and data, and Akash is looking to fill that void. And not only that, Akash is also bringing in USDC as a settlement into Akash. So people paying for the networks and nodes, whereas people who normally wouldn't want to use Akash, they can now use USDC as settlement. Also in Akash 2.0, Greg also hinted at doing some token burns for their stable coin or their stable token that they are going to use as payment on the platform. So in summary, it's really a sink or a void that takes these additional cost tokens and creates more demand for the AKT token, especially as this decentralized cloud grows. So if you want to learn more about Akash, you can check out the previous videos I made on it, but this is coin number one that I'm looking at as a bull market coin. Second one is Thorchain and the Rune token. Now, if you look at the chart, it has recently gone up, but if you kind of zoom out, you can see it's actually been flooring around the price of around 90 cents to $1. It actually made a double bottom around this range, but if you zoom out, you can kind of see where we're at, putting everything into perspective. Again, I want to reiterate to you guys, these tokens I'm talking about in this video are bull market coins. So if a bull market does come around, these will do extremely well in my opinion. Now there's a chance that they don't, but these are just some that I have my chips played on. So Thorchain, the thesis or the use of Thorchain is that it's actually creating a omnipool, and it allows you to swap native Bitcoin for native ETH or native Litecoin or native assets. So this is entirely different from swapping ETH into wrapped Bitcoin. Wrapped Bitcoin is owned by BitGo. It's a centralized party and they can freeze this, it can lose peg. We already saw what happened with some of the other Bitcoin derivatives. One of the main infrastructure layouts that they use is ThorSwap. They also use Shapeshift. This is run by, or not run, but Eric Voorhees actually launched this. It's now decentralized, but basically it was one of the OG swappers. You can kind of consider it like one of the OG exchanges where you can actually swap Bitcoin into USDC, ETH, whatever. So here's what it looks like to use Thorchain on ThorSwap. ThorSwap is just one of the many interfaces that Thorchain has, but you can see here I can swap native Ethereum to native Bitcoin. No other DEX allows you to do this. In fact, if you use 1inch, if you use Rocket Exchange, if you use any of these other aggregators, they end up swapping ETH to native Bitcoin using ThorSwap. People aggregate and use on top of this. So the reason why you're able to swap native Bitcoin for native Ethereum or native Litecoin or any of these assets that they have listed on here, it's because each of these assets are paired with the Rune token. This is basically similar to how on Uniswap, if you go to swap any other random ERC20, you can swap it into Ethereum because most of the tokens are paired with the ETH token. And if they aren't, the technology or like crypto has evolved to where it auto routes through and most of the tokens are paired with ETH anyways. Whereas on Thorchain, it's the same exact concept. These tokens are pooled 50-50. So if I wanted to add liquidity to Bitcoin, I would add a portion of Bitcoin and Rune. Now, if I only have Rune, I can choose to add single-sided, but on the back end, what it does is it balances it 50-50. So herein lies why Rune is considered a bull market coin. It has a multiplier to where every dollar deposited, there's $3 in value that is theoretically added. And the reason for this is that 2 times the value needs to be locked up in the nodes. So let's say, for example, I deposit $1 in Bitcoin. Well, these nodes then need to have $2 in Rune on their end in order to run the node. They have to have 2 times the value that I deposit. And on the other side, there has to be $1 additional to pair with that $1 in Bitcoin. So there's an additional $3 added for every $1 deposited into there because it's 3x the total market cap added. So for example, if there's $100,000 added into the Thorchain ecosystem, then that creates the minimum market cap for Rune to be 300 million. It must be 3x the value because $3 in additional Rune. So if I deposit $1 in Bitcoin, it has to be paired with $1 in Rune, and then the node has to have $2 in Rune. So if there's 100,000 in, there has to be 300,000 in the Rune market cap. And that's why, again, it's considered a bull market coin. And you can see it has a speculative multiplier just based on these dollar values. If you look back in the previous bull run when Rune was trading around $20, the deterministic price of Rune, like the bare bones minimum, was around 50 cents. So you can already see it had a 40x multiple on it. Now don't even get me started on the ThorFi and the Thor Earn part, but the quick TLDR on how this works, or quick summary, is that on this section, for at least the Thor Earn side, people can deposit assets like Bitcoin, ETH, BNB without having exposure to the Rune token. Now on the other side, someone else can take that part of the trade. But in summary, what this does is it allows people to deposit more assets into the Thorchain ecosystem with that 3-to-1 ratio. It again juices the minimum market cap that has to do with the Rune token. Second, on top of that, you also have the fact that they have ThorFi. ThorFi allows for 0 interest, no liquidation loans. And some of these loans will be perma-locked, and the Rune that is locked in these loans will not be redeemed. What this means is theoretically the Rune tokens are just effectively burned. And then on top of this, all the asset slip fees, those permanently burn Rune as well. So the more volume on the DEX, which I do see them as doing more volume, this will be deflationary on the Rune token itself. And combine that with the ThorFi section and the Thor Earn, you then have this, well, bull market flywheel. This is why I consider it a bull market coin. And then also combine that with several of the nodes that are literally on standby, waiting to be able to spin up their own node on Thorchain and start processing transactions. If you take a look and see how much their bonds are, like this guy has over 1 million Rune, 974,000 Rune. You can see these guys are picking up a lot of Rune. Now, of course, these are a little bit dead down here, but these ones are the main ones to look for. In summary, this is like, I don't know, 10 million Rune tokens that are just going to be taken off the market because people are locking them up into nodes. These are the current active nodes that we have on the Thorchain ecosystem. And you can see here on ThorSwap, the current liquidity in ThorSwap is $118 million. Now, of course, this is also including the Rune token as well, but you can kind of get like a bare bones minimum of the minimum market caps you're looking for. Currently, Thorchain is sitting around a $340 million market cap. Now again, it's been consolidating in this range, and like we zoomed out, you can see here that at peak bull run, it was around $20. And if you look back in their past, they are working on something complex. So there were some exploits with some errors in the code, but all of them have been covered. Now I'll use this as a segue to go into ThorSwap. Now ThorSwap is one of the protocols built on top of Thorchain. Now the Thor token itself, it lives on Ethereum. You can actually swap and get it on ThorSwap, and it aggregates through and gets you the prices that you need in order to swap for it. The main reason why I like ThorSwap is, well, for a couple of reasons. A lot of this volume you see here, it has steadily been trending up and holding strong. You see this little fire thing? This is usually good when it comes to a cryptocurrency. Why? Well, because it typically means a burn. This token has been constantly being burned as there's more and more volume on the DEX. You can already see here they burned 35 million tokens. And the reason why they are getting a spike in volume and more demand has to do with the prices they are able to give on their swaps. They are actually giving better swaps than normal. If you take a look at a comparison, I shared a comparison just on Twitter. I just took a couple of screenshots and shared them. If you were to swap 1 Bitcoin on ThorSwap into ETH, you would get 15.91 using their StreamSwap. I'll explain that later in this video, but you can see here you're getting 15.91 ETH for every 1 Bitcoin. Now if you use Rocket Exchange, this is considered an aggregator that goes through both exchanges as well as DEXs. You can only get 15.89 ETH. It may not seem like much, but it's still a 0.02 ETH difference for just a small amount of a trade. Like 1 Bitcoin for whales at least is considered small. Now what StreamSwap does is it takes a little bit different approach in these swaps. Whereas if you're like impulsive, impatient, and you're like, hey, I just need the swap as quick as possible and I just need it done, it'll simply swap Bitcoin to ETH, and literally that's it. Like you'll just get Bitcoin to ETH and it'll be the quickest swap possible, and it won't even consider in giving the best prices. I'll show you what that looks like on ThorSwap. So let's say, for example, I was to go 1 ETH, or let's say 100 ETH into Bitcoin. It will allow me to have 2 different options. I can do a stream swap or a time optimize. You can see if I do the time optimize and just get it as quick as possible from ETH to Bitcoin, well, I'm only going to get 5.93 Bitcoin. However, if I do the stream swap, I'm going to get significantly more. It's about 0.3 Bitcoin difference. Now, the tech on StreamSwap, you can see here, this kind of explains it. Instead of just going from one swap to another, it breaks it up into multiple swaps. This is different from doing like a limit order or an aggregation order on any of the other DEXs, because those involve transaction fees. So if I was on Ethereum on Uniswap and I was saying, hey, I want to DCA into this meme coin and make 10 different swaps, well, I have to pay 10 different gas fees. Especially in a bull market with some of these swaps costing a couple of $100, it adds up. Whereas with ThorSwap, it's literally just one swap and it does it on the back end, and it actually settles on the Thorchain chain. Yeah, that's kind of like a whatever. You get the point. It settles on Thorchain and it has lower gas fees. So it goes from Bitcoin, then it gets onto Thorchain because it's swapping into Rune, and then it's making the swaps while it's on there, and then it settles to where you're wanting it. So if I'm going from Bitcoin to ETH, instead of paying a gas fee on Bitcoin, gas fee on ETH for it to go through, instead it's just one transaction or one gas fee through Bitcoin, gets onto ThorSwap, do all that jazz, makes your stream swap, and then it goes to ETH and I pay the gas fee to settle it. So I still get the optimized prices that I want, but yet I don't have to pay the ridiculous gas fees. So again, like to summarize what I just said, before streaming swaps came about, traders could achieve lower slippage for larger trades by manually dividing them into numerous smaller swaps. This costs a lot of money because you have to pay gas fees every single time. Now this goes back to the Thor token on ThorSwap because a portion of the transaction fees that happen on ThorSwap go back as revenue for the stakers of the Thor token. And on top of this, a portion of that Thor is actually being burned. So in reality, if you take a look at the Thor token itself, just based on the previous prices that it was doing in the last bull run, you can see here it's relatively, well, it's got a comeback trade. Not financial advice, of course. So this is just another one of those coins that I have on my radar for the bull market. Again, this is a bull market coin. And just taking a look at Thor yield, this is just a dashboard for Thorchain. You can see the daily volume on ThorSwap is continuing to rise. And even on Thorchain, just in general, if you take a look at this chart, you can see here it's steadily on the rise, where it's cranking out up about 300% of what it was normally doing. You can see steadily over time, even throughout the bear, it was holding a steady amount of volume. Now this leads me into the last coin. Well, last set of coins. These have to do with the Reddit tokens. Most of you probably, if you haven't, heard about Brix and Moons. Now, Brix and Moons, they took a moonshot, like literally. The reason for this moonshot here was an exchange on, or a listing on Kraken, as well as a listing on Crypto.com. These things literally took off to the moon, for lack of a better term. And Brix also did the same. Now, the reason for this, for these tokens to do this complete moonshot, is that the thesis on this is that you can use these tokens as kind of like a tipping system in the Reddit subgroup. Now, this is the subgroup for Moons. It's got 6.6 million members. If you look at the market cap of the Moon token, it's got a $55 million market cap. So let's just say of these 6.6 million members, each of them had 1,000 moons. Well, actually, they wouldn't be able to do that. Why? Because there's only 106 million in the supply. So just going based on that, if this group takes off and people start accumulating the moons and do extremely well, like they did last bull run just for fun with another one of the Reddit tokens called Donut. You can see here Donut at its peak went to like, oh, what is that? 7 cents, and it's currently trading at half a penny. Now, Donut is one of the other tokens that I'm looking at. This is one of the Reddit tokens. It's only a $1.159 million market cap, whereas Moons and Brix, those things are trading at a $55 million as well as a $38 million market cap. If you compare the members in their group, Fortnite Brix, they have 2.7 million members, and Donut has 2.3 million members. This is basically like the original ETH group, and you can tip people with different donuts. So how this would work is you click on the subreddit, and obviously you got to be logged in to do this, and you link your MetaMask and you can send people donuts. These are kind of like meme coins that have large communities behind them. Of course, most of the members aren't even active right now. Again, this is why it's a bull market coin, because people are going to go into these subreddits looking for alpha calls and different plays, and when they have someone that gives a good play, they'll be like, hey, I want to tip you some donuts, or if they want to tip some of these moons. The moons is on a layer 2, so it's a little bit less gas intensive. It's on Arbitrum Nova, but it's already listed on the exchanges. The trade on this is to grab some before they're listed on an exchange. As you can see here, this thing pumped from 10 cents to 50 cents. That's a 5x within like the matter of the listing. Now Brix, crazy on the other hand. It went from half a penny, and at its peak it went to around 40 cents. That's an 80x. That's nuts in hand. Donut is still sitting at its lows, and in my opinion, if we do get a bull run, I could see it at least going to a penny, 2 pennies, or even as like a catch-up trade on an exchange listing. The reason for that is it's a low market cap, 1, and 2, it has very low liquidity on DEXs. Not super low, but it's about $160,000 in liquidity on Uniswap. So currently, right now, if someone wanted to buy this, they can't go to an exchange. They got to go through Uniswap, and a lot of people don't want to pay the gas fees on that. So again, these are more speculation. These are kind of like meme coins. And as always, time will tell. We'll see what happens with Donut, Bricks, as well as Moons. I'm more so bullish on Donut if I was to pick one. The reason for that is because Bricks and Moon, they are already listed on the exchanges, and that trade is kind of already missed. Now, if they do come back to around the 3 cent level, just going based on their communities and the size that they have, I'm willing to consider them as a position. These are inflationary. They are not a capped supply, so do keep that in mind. You can actually farm some of these and get these for free by going into the Reddit communities and playing around with there. There's actually some other ones as well, like Bitcone. They have their own Cone token, but it is also a little bit higher market cap, but still you can play around with it. It's a lot of fun. Just understand that these are meme coins and understand that the trade that you're going with. These are not ones that have fundamentals, but sometimes those tend to outperform. These are considered bull market coins. If you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed some of the topics I talked about and some of the coins I talked about, you guys can check out the previous videos I've made on this channel. And if you guys would like to hear about some coins that I don't even share on YouTube, as well as some exclusive content I don't share on YouTube, and yes, I did share all of these projects in Discord before I showed them on YouTube, you can check the exclusive Discord link out in the description below. And if you guys enjoy videos like this, tell me what you guys thought of the video. And if you don't, tell me what videos I should cover or what topics I should cover in a video. Let's go ahead and hit you guys with a wisdom one-liner. We're going to hit you guys with Proverbs chapter 12, verses 12. The wicked desire the stronghold of evildoers, but the root of the righteous endures. Be good, be righteous. Peace. Oh, I just realized I forgot to share with you guys the other coins as well. You guys checked out the previous videos. The other coins would have to do with Velodrome and F-Bomb. I guess we'll have to talk about these in another video because it's kind of long. But yeah, just DYOR on them. I also want to give a reminder again, these are bull market coins that I just gave. If Bitcoin ends up taking a nuke or dumping from here, then I mean, these can go into an accumulation mode. A lot of these I have gotten at lower prices, and then some of them I am still looking to dollar cost average into. So some of these have already pumped already. Wait till they have retraces, or at least prices come down a bit. Be careful of FOMO. Don't chase after runs. It's okay if you miss it. There are always going to be another trade that's out there, and there's always going to be another token that does well. Making a 10x on 10 coins or a 10x on one coin with $1,000 is literally the exact same thing. What do I mean by this? Well, if I put $100 in 10 different coins and they all do a 10x, well, that means at the end of the day I have 10,000 bucks. If I make a 10x on one coin with $1,000 invested, I also make 10,000 bucks. It doesn't matter. It's the same mathematically. Anyways, guys, this is not financial advice. Thanks for watching.